Donald Trump can no longer cover up, whether it be his health crisis or his Jeffrey Epstein relationship. Donald Trump has gone to his last resort, running away. And today that takes the form of a golf trip, which is being blown up because Pam Bondi, as bad as she is at her job, found a way to be worse at it today, as a secret Epstein list has leaked, has gone public in a court filing by the DOJ, showing just how panicked they are, how much they're trying to cover it up. MSNBC just broke this news that we are going to get into, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we can get into this new list, which is shaking up the entire Epstein scandal, we have to start with the context for it, and that is how deep Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein goes, which Rachel Maddow talked about right here.
What happened to the lawyer who got Epstein his bizarrely lenient plea deal when he was first arrested on sex trafficking charges in Florida? What happened to the lawyer who got him that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Well, Trump hired him to be his own lawyer. What happened to the U.S. attorney who gave Jeffrey Epstein that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Trump put him in his cabinet in his first term. Well, who then prosecuted Epstein a second time when he was brought up on federal charges? That was the SDNY line prosecutor who Trump inexplicably fired last week. Who was in charge of the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons when Epstein then killed himself in federal custody? President Donald Trump. Who bragged to a reporter about how much Epstein seemed to like women on the younger side? Who said Epstein was a lot of fun to be with? Who bragged that he was friends with Epstein for 15 years? Who flew on his plane at least 7 times? And who now says that everybody needs to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein right now? Answers there are Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, and Donald Trump.
Donald Trump has a very deep connection, not just to Jeffrey Epstein, we know they were best friends for a decade, but those who helped defend Jeffrey Epstein, those who helped Jeffrey Epstein get off, those who kept Jeffrey Epstein from accountability. Those are some of Donald Trump's closest friends. Those were some of Donald Trump's own lawyers. Those were people who served in Donald Trump's own administration. The web, the connection of all of these elites is very clear as they try to protect themselves. And of course, Donald Trump is doing it again by trying to bury any new information about Jeffrey Epstein. It's a phenomenon that Jasmine Crockett perfectly described here and is the important thing we need to know, which is why the new list is so bad.
You know what is so interesting? As I sat there and I listened, I was like, this is like a ridiculous RICO case. I mean, the levels of complexity and the levels of organizations that participated. We're talking about allegations that there were attorneys that were doing sham marriages, bringing ladies from Russia and Ukraine over. We're talking about specifically them potentially having links to foreign governments. We're talking about little girls. We're talking about this happening to little girls, but also to young college girls. We're talking about all of the people that participated. It wasn't just Maxwell. It wasn't just Epstein, but we're talking about the fact that there were drivers that were driving these girls and knew what they were doing. There were butlers, there were cooks, there were lawyers, there were accountants. All of these people that were engaged, and we don't know their names. And so there's a lot of people that are still out there that need to be held accountable.
This operation goes so much deeper than just Epstein or Epstein and Maxwell. There were a number of associates, his criminal counterparts in this entire cabal, and Donald Trump understands that. That's what's so bad. On top of Donald Trump just covering for himself, telling Pam Bondi to close the investigation into Epstein, it was also the act of closing the investigation into all of the other abusers who had their identities, at least as it relates to Jeffrey Epstein, covered up. But that is no longer the case, as NBC is now working to share more of those associates. But Pam Bondi accidentally leaked it, and we can see right here.
Let's go first to NBC's Yamiche Alcindor at the White House with an NBC News exclusive. There's some new information within just this last hour, Yamiche, on the Epstein investigation. So what have we learned so far, and what's going to come next?
Well, good afternoon, Alex. Just in the last hour, our colleague Tom Winter broke the news that the DOJ on Friday asked a federal judge overseeing the case of deceased sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein to deny a request from NBC News to unseal the names of 2 associates who received large payments from Epstein in 2018. Court documents show the Justice Department cited privacy concerns expressed by the 2 individuals as the reason for not making their names public. Now, the first associate received a payment of $100,000 from Epstein. The second associate received a payment of $250,000. Now, both of those payments happened in 2018, just days after the Miami Herald began publishing a series of stories where victims criticized a plea deal Epstein received in Florida in 2008. Now, as part of that plea agreement, Epstein secured a statement from federal prosecutors in Florida. The 2 people would not be prosecuted. Now, the payments became public after Epstein was indicted and arrested in New York in 2019. And just last month, NBC News sent a letter asking a federal judge to unseal the redacted names because Epstein's dead, the criminal proceedings have ended, and the DOJ said in a memo in July that there would be no additional charges filed against uncharged third parties. The judge has now given NBC News until September 12th to respond to the DOJ's request that the names remain secret. It's not known when the judge will make a final decision about NBC News' request. Now, of course, all of this comes as there's a bipartisan effort to release more files related to Jeffrey Epstein. Take a listen to lawmakers.
Less than 1% of these files have been released. We are demanding today on the discharge petition that all of the files be released. If you've looked at the pages they've released so far, they're heavily redacted. Some pages are entirely redacted. And 97% of this is already in the public domain. So I'm calling on my colleagues, be one of the next 2 who sponsors this discharge petition.
So, of course, Alex, it's striking to see Republicans and Democrats joining forces to push for more files. But President Trump insists that everything that could have been released has now been released, Alex.
Got to tell you, it's a hell of a story from Tom Winter. He may have opened a can of worms here, and you have very carefully and thoroughly reported this, Yamiche, in a very short period of time. Thank you so much.
So what is clear is the DOJ's filing asking for those 2 associates who had been wired tremendous amounts of money to be kept secret is essentially an admission that this is a deep connection that Pam Bondi and Donald Trump don't want to become public because it is just another place for the press to go investigate, to go get more information. Right? What Donald Trump has largely said, and what you hear a lot from MAGA, their defense of how they've rolled out the Epstein files is that they just want to protect the victims. They don't want anyone's name getting out there again. They don't want to damage anyone's life. That's what they've tried to say. And of course, that makes sense. That's what Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie's resolution does. They keep the victims protected. But that's not what Donald Trump is trying to do here. Associates who were paid off helping Jeffrey Epstein are individuals whose names we should know. Their connection to Epstein and potentially Trump should be known. And that is what the DOJ is trying to hide. They are trying to cover up the list of Epstein associates involved with this abuse. That's what they want hidden from you because it goes so much deeper. And Jamie Raskin broke that all down right here.
Chairman Jordan's made it clear he's not going to give us a hearing devoted exclusively to the Epstein files, but Pam Bondi is coming in soon. Kash Patel is coming in soon, and we will have the opportunity to question them. And, it's not as good as having one hearing just devoted to it, but the Democrats will make sure that we get very deeply into this.
I spoke with your colleague, Congresswoman Stansbury, last night, and she said, we've all learned so much over the last couple of months. It's really expanded, at least my perception of the scope here. She said that she thinks that there could be thousands of victims. I mean, it feels like it could be a much larger cover-up than we even thought it was a few months ago. You were very deeply dug into this. What do you think?
Yeah, and Melanie's absolutely right about that. And that's why it's so excellent that the victims have come to the fore and are acting in such a brave way to both articulate their own experiences, but to talk about this systemic problem. On the Judiciary Committee side, we're going to be releasing an explosive report early next week about how the Trump administration has been systematically dismantling the anti-human trafficking and anti-domestic violence programs and grants across the federal government. Human trafficking programs at the Department of State, at the Department of Justice, at Health and Human Services, USAID, you name it. And we've collected all of that, and we're going to show people that this is an administration that is on the side of the human traffickers and the sex abusers. And if you look at Donald Trump's pardons, and if you looked at various actions taken by the Department of Justice, they are overwhelmingly on the side of sexual offenders and human traffickers. So this is not like one kind of lonely, discrete, one-off episode we're talking about. This is now becoming clear, a whole system that the Trump administration is committed to.
We will definitely look out for that report, and thanks for the work in compiling it. It's not a surprise that that's what they have been doing. I want to get your reaction to something Speaker Mike Johnson said yesterday when defending Trump's claim that the whole Epstein matter is a hoax. It was kind of bizarre, but take a look.
It's been misrepresented. He's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down.
I mean, the last part of that was, I don't know, it was a little mind-blowing, but what did you make of what he said?
Well, a hoax is a corruption scandal or a crime that Donald Trump doesn't want anybody talking about anymore. It couldn't be any clearer. And I'm glad that the victims were indignant and outraged about that slur on their experience and their advocacy today. There's nothing hoax-like about this. And if it's a Democrat hoax, as he claims, he started it, because he was the one who was saying, let's go ahead and release all the files. And then after he had 1,000 FBI agents working around the clock to discover what was actually in there, that's when he decided, oh, no, nothing to see here. Everybody just go home and forget about it. The public is not going to let this go. And those files have got to be released. The real question is to what extent they've already redacted or damaged information in there. But we don't need these retread files that they've been sending over the last several weeks. We need the files they're not sending. Those are the ones that we have to demand. And I'm glad that we've got 4 brave Republicans on our side and every Democrat in the House of Representatives demanding a complete accounting of this nightmarish child sex ring.
Donald Trump wants to call this a hoax. It's just not working. It goes too deep. The evidence is obvious. Trump continues to implicate himself every time he pretends that there is nothing to see here. It is an admission of how panicked he is, and it is why it's so important that we continue to talk about this story. We're going to be every single day on this show, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.